Hello there. It is becoming apparent that there is a silent war going on in this country, which the average citizen must not be made aware of for fear of upsetting the woke inclusivity mantra. Today, before Prime Minister's question time started, the Speaker of the House of Commons, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, told MPs to keep their lips buttoned with respect to the alleged perpetrator of the Southport killings. He was quite stern about that. He would truck no mention of it.
I wish to remind the House that the following horrendous, terrible incident in Southport on the 29th of July, a suspect is awaiting trial, having been charged with multiple offences. That means the House sub judice resolution is engaged and references should not be made to the case. I know that all honourable members wish to see justice done in this case. It is therefore of paramount importance that nothing is said in this House which could potentially prejudice a proper trial or lead to it being abandoned. I know it can be frustrating when we can see reports in the media of the matters that we are not free to discuss here. But that arises from Parliament's constitutional relationship with the courts. More importantly, at the heart of this case are three young girls. We all want to see justice done for them and for their families, and for others injured in and affected by this appalling incident. Speculation about the cases, including comments made in this House, could seriously risk prejudicing proceedings. I know that none of us would ever wish to do that. Therefore, it would be wrong of me to exercise a waiver in this case, and members should not refer to it or risk prejudicing this case. Of course, I understand that members have legitimate questions about the circumstances surrounding this case. There will be no doubt wanting ministers to commit that they will come to the House and answer those questions once the legal proceedings are concluded. I give my assurance that I will ensure there are ample opportunities to do so. My understanding is that this trial is expected to start in January, and if members have questions about the operation and the decision on sub judice's resolution, they can speak to the clerks and the Speaker's Council. In the meantime, our thoughts are with the family and friends of Bibi, Elsie and Alice, and all of those who were injured and affected on this horrendous day.
He made it quite clear that he would not be pleased to see any mention of the case at all, just in case one verbal slip should jeopardise it. And the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, when asked a question related to that case by Reform UK MP Richard Tice, refused to mention it directly nor answer the question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government's own independent reviewer of terrorism legislation, Jonathan Hall KC, has said repeatedly recently that it is important in incidents of terrorism that the authorities put out more information sooner in order to prevent an information gap. Does the Prime Minister agree?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, obviously I'll tread carefully in answering this question for the very reasons that you yourself set out at the beginning of this session. I think it's very important, first and foremost, that in all cases, including the particularly difficult case that the Speaker mentioned earlier, that the police and prosecutors are able to do their difficult job. And all of us in this House have a choice to make, including both candidates to be the next Tory leader. They can either support the police in their difficult task, or they can undermine the police in their difficult task. I know which side I'm on.
Rachel Blake.
Starmer looked very relieved that he had a get-out clause, didn't he? That most heinous of crimes and all the circumstances surrounding it are being airbrushed from our national debate, even debate within our once known as mother of all parliaments, with the reason, we're being told, that we must safeguard the integrity of the CPS case. We must not prejudice the outcome for fear of a failure of justice. With the Prime Minister Keir Starmer and Home Secretary Yvette Cooper nodding sagely and solemnly in agreement. You get the impression from the last couple of days that there is a hell of a lot to play for here, in this one solitary case. And these are the same people who put out on the likes of X that all those so-called far-right rioters must receive the attention of the full force of the law and no quarter would be given. No attempt at ensuring justice, etc. in those cases, no withholding of speculation there. And even government interference in those cases of the far right seems to be acceptable, doesn't it? And one wonders if the perpetrator in the Southport case will be getting the same persuasion to plead guilty as it appears that the likes of Peter Lynch received. God rest his soul. But that aside, the silence surrounding this case is deafening compared to the relentless press briefings and public show trials Starmer's political prisoners were getting. And this can only lead to speculation. Not about any particular part of this case, but about the wider issue of terrorism in the UK. We know that the bulk of terrorism and potential terrorism emanates from one certain demographic and vastly outweighs the threat from the constantly mentioned far right. We know that because of the intelligence that we are allowed to know about, that puts the far right at 25% at most of the terrorist threat. And we all know where the other 75% is sourced from, with over 40,000 of them on the watch list several years ago. I wonder what the true figure is today. And that police press conference yesterday by Chief Constable Serena Kennedy from Merseyside Police looked like an exercise in pulling hen's teeth or getting blood from a stone. It looked to me like she did not want to impart that information about ricin and an Al-Qaeda instruction manual within 24 hours of the Tommy Robinson trial and 24 hours before a major budget announcement. Actually, that particular document they found was named as Military Studies in the Jihad Against the Tyrants, the Al-Qaeda Training Manual. And this is a breakdown of the Al-Qaeda Training Manual by Dr. Gerald Post, a professor of psychiatry, political psychology and international affairs for the US Air Force Counter-Proliferation Center, Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama, where the handbook itself is presented and interspersed with explanatory editorial comment. In short, as the document itself says, had this significant document been more closely attended to in the wake of the 1998 embassy bombings, it would have better focused our attention on the danger posed to the United States by this sophisticated transnational terrorist organisation. Now, I did read that bit online, but I have not downloaded a copy of this obviously dangerous, unclassified US military document. After all, I don't want to be arrested, do I? But how many people have innocently downloaded it, for study purposes maybe? What, on its own, would make this an arrestable document to have in your possession? And this was found, I assume, soon after Axel Ruder-Cabana was arrested, as was the ricin, found nearly 3 months ago. Now, I'm assuming that the nation's interpreters were all tied up and far too busy in the NHS, the courts and in the asylum system to give their time over to translate this document from the original American into English. Probably explaining why no one in the police, CPS or government had any idea what it was until a couple of days ago, when the decision was taken to charge the alleged perpetrator. And it's only at this point that the Speaker of the Commons starts telling MPs to keep their mouths shut. MPs who have the right of parliamentary privilege to say what they like in the Commons. I'm wondering how much our political establishment really knows about this case and any wider connections, and how much they've decided to keep collectively quiet about. I won't speculate, but I will ask. Were there, for example, any religious books hanging about in this man's home? We won't be told. But according to the Telegraph, senior government figures knew in the past few weeks that the alleged Southport killer could face terror charges. And Breitbart reports, the leftist Labour Party government in Britain is facing accusations of a cover-up over the mass stabbing at a children's dance party in Southport after the suspect was charged with terror offences. Although, for clarification, as far as I know, it is only one terror-related charge, not multiple as both reports suggest. Unless they know something that is being held back, of course. Throughout this episode, I've been getting an increasing impression that the authorities are trying to keep the lid on a steadily increasing and very dangerous problem. A problem they cannot possibly tell us about. And you can guess the reasons why, can't you?